All right, so I've had a few people ask me some questions about my logic and my decision making in this game. So thankfully, we actually have a recording of the whole thing, which is something I wish I had for all of my games. But because I'm lucky enough to be able to see what I was doing, I'm going to kind of talk through some of the thought processes and especially some of the key moments in this series and kind of explain why I did what I did. Um, I did a little bit of math, just some napkin math on the side, just to calculate some probabilities to kind of support what I was thinking. And I'm not going to spoil kind of the conclusion that I came to, but I will say that in the moment, I felt like the plays that I made were the only play available. But after actually running the numbers, I think it makes more sense to not do what I did. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's get into the game itself. So here, I have to go first. I don't have a Poffin. I don't have any nest balls. So the only thing I can really do is Ultra Ball for a Dreepy. My hand, I think I only had like a Duskull as like my only other basic. So only having one Dreepy and no out to a Badoo is pretty bad. My opponent's going to be getting either a TM Evo off or they're going to be getting an item lock off, depending on the build that they play. So either way, I'm going to be in a pretty bad position here. And I pre-attached the Duskull just to be able to retreat into a Badoo next turn. Um, I could have maybe also attached to a Dreepy, but I think attaching to Duskull just to have the pivot is safer. And here I see my opponent. I kind of know a few of the cards in my opponent's hand here because they play a lot of searching cards. I know at the end of this kind of sequence, they have a they have an Arvin in their hand, which they secret box for, and I saw that they didn't secret box for a Lily. So, my thought process initially was either one of two things: either they're getting a second Arvin so they can go for another TM Evo next turn into double Gardevoir, or they already have a Lilies in hand. So I was operating under the assumption that they already have a Lilies in hand, and I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit because my opponent's just price checking and they go for a TM Evo on two Curlias. And here I have a really important decision to make. I see this board state and I look in my hand and I notice that there's no way that I can have more than one Dreepy. Because even after my Lilies or whatever supporter I played, I have no other Pokemon search. I have no other way to actually get another Dreepy down. So I'm staring at a board where my opponent has two Curlias and a Screamtail, and I have only one Dracloak. So my immediate thought process is I need to protect this Dracloak by any means necessary, and the only way that my opponent can kill this Dracloak is with Screamtail, because this deck doesn't play boss and they don't have any other way to kill Dracloak. So looking at my hand, I realize I'm not item locked. I have an Ultra Ball, I have double Stretcher. So I figure what I can do in this position is I can take out the Screamtail and I can Itchy Pollen my opponent so they can't recover the Screamtail. They don't play Lana's Aid or any other non-item supporter, so at least that guarantees that my Dracloak lives for a turn so I can get into a Dragapult later. Um, that's, I guess, kind of a controversial decision. I did get a lot of questions about this later. Some people thought it was an insanely good play. Other people looked at it and were like, why would you ever do that? Initially, I did think that was my only play because I really valued having a Dragapult at some point in this matchup. But I'm going to run through the numbers here real quick. Let me actually play out this turn and then I'll kind of show you what I did and kind of maybe what I should have done. So here I get the second stretcher and I have a decision to make. I can Ultra Ball here either for another Dreepy or like a Dragapult or something, or I can go for the play that I went for, which is to double Dusclops and KO the Screamtail here. Now, again, my thought process is I just need to protect my only Dracloak, and I figure I have two nice stretchers, so I can kind of kill two birds with one stone. I can take the Screamtail out, I can get the Psychic Energy off my Duskull, and I can attach that Psychic to the Dracloak with my second nice stretcher, which is a little bit of an overextension of resources, to be honest, because I'm giving my opponent two prizes here, and I'm burning double nice stretcher just to get an energy attach and give up all my Dusclops. Um, so in this board state, now if my opponent does get a Gardevoir, yes, my Dracloak gets to live, but realistically, what am I doing? Because now I don't actually have a way to kill the Gardevoir once it comes out. So I looked at the numbers here, and it turns out that so I know what my opponent's kind of hand was. They had an Arvin from the secret box, and they had two other cards that I didn't know, but I assumed one of them was a Lilies or some sort of draw supporter. So if we assume that my opponent has a Lilies here and they don't have a Gardevoir in hand, the numbers that I ran gave me about 41% of my opponent being able to get a Gardevoir, and this factors in whether one of the two cards in their hand is already a Gardevoir, and if not, then if they Lilies that hand into their deck and they draw a fresh 8, what are the odds of them hitting a Gardevoir? And it also factors in the probability of them having two Gardevoirs in deck, meaning neither of them are prized, or having only one Gardevoir in deck if one of them is prized. So all of that factored in. I didn't factor in the probability of two Gardevoirs being prized because that's like a less than 1% chance, so it's negligible. But assuming either one Gardevoir is prized or no Gardevoirs are prized, there's about a 41% chance that my opponent ends up with a Gardevoir on this turn. So I kind of understand why people think that this was a bit of a mistake because there's a little less than 50-50 chance that my only Dracloak gets knocked out this turn. The question then becomes, is it actually worse for me to not have a Dracloak but still have Dusclopses, or is it worse for me to have no Dusclopses and maintain the Dracloak? Um, After thinking about this for a little bit, after I watched Azul watching this video and kind of got his take on it as well, I am starting to maybe come around to the idea that maybe I shouldn't have gone for this play. There's a 60% chance that I'm safe, approximately. And even if I'm not safe, even if I lose the Dracloak, I can always go for like a counter catcher, Itchy Pollen, because they would have to. My opponent only had 2 psychics in discard, so they would have had to, put all of those psychics on their Screamtail to take out my Dracloak. Um, I think that's true. Yes, they would have had to put on both psychics because they would have had 10 on it from Itchy Pollen plus another 40 from the 2 psychics. So they would have had no psychics in discard. I could have maybe gone Countercatcher or Bostel Gardevoir with Itchy Pollen, and maybe I actually would have been fine. So I am actually happy that I was able to review this, and I'm happy that people did call me out on this. At first, I thought it was my only play, but now that I'm actually looking at the numbers, I think realistically it makes more sense for me to not have gone for this because even if they kill my Dracloak, as long as I have Dusclopses and Duskulls, I can always build up another board with item lock. So I will admit that this was a mistake. So let's see kind of what happens. So we see here that my opponent actually does whiff the Gardevoir, even with the Fez. So this is another reason why this was not good for me. I didn't factor this into my calculations, but this obviously increases my opponent's chance of getting Gardevoir out this turn. But we'll see that even with the Fez, my opponent doesn't actually get a Guardy out. So they kind of just go, I think they go for a call sign here, if I recall correctly. So now in this position, I have to Iono my opponent because they have a Gardevoir now. And so next turn, and they also have a Munkidori. So next turn, I am going to probably lose if they can Adrenabrain 30 over to my Badoo and then just Miracle Force my Dracloak. So now that they do grab the Gardevoir, I think they grabbed Guardy, Monkey, and something else. I can't tell what that is. It looks like another Ralts. So now I have to Iono the Guardy to the bottom. So now they have like a 1 in something chance of drawing into a Gardevoir. I think it's like 1 in like 35 or something. So I go for a stall play on the Fez because now my prize map basically has to just be bossing around the Guardies if my opponent gets a Guardy out. Because now that I've committed to this play, I'm down to 5. I can't really just go to like wipe their Guardies or whatever. So I have to kind of kill like the Fez, the Clefairy, another 1-prizer. That's going to be my prize map. So unfortunately, I do with the Dragapult here, which is a big, big issue for me. But my opponent doesn't really do anything. They get the Guardy out, but they just go kind of like draw and gloom. And now the game gets a little hard for me because I got to figure out how to actually take my last 5 prizes. I know that I'm going to get Clefairy Mute at some point, and so this is another kind of interesting decision that I have. Is like this turn I do have Dragapult in hand. In fact, I have 2 Dragapults in hand, so I can evolve up both of my Dracloaks. But the issue that I have here is if my opponent gets a Munkidori KO on my Badoo and I push up a Dracloak, they can just punch into it and KO it and go down to 2 prizes. And if I put in a Dragapult and they have a Clefairy here, they can just KO my Dragapult and go down to 1 prize. And then the game becomes really hard for me. So I actually make the decision to not evolve either of my Dracloaks and just keep a 1 prize board state. And I bench the Latias here because I have a good feeling that my Badoo is going to be knocked out by Munkidori next turn, and I don't want to let my opponent punch into either of my Dracloaks. So that's why I put down the Latias to have something to push once my Badoo gets knocked out by Munkidori. Go for the Pollen here. Yep, there's the Dark Energy on the Munkidori. And now basically my whole goal is to make a board state where my opponent cannot pull off a crazy Clefairy Mew combo, which is one thing that Guardy loves to do against Dragapult. So they do get the mid-turn KO. I think they just gloom my Latias if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to jump forward a bit. Yeah, so they gloom my Latias. So here, now I have a board state of Latias, Fez, and 2 Dracloaks. So now I do want to evolve up my 2 Dracloaks to Dragapults, so they can't get into a board state, or they can't get into a position where they can take 3 prizes with new Clefairy. And here, this turn, there was something I could have done. I had the opportunity. I had a Luminous in hand. I actually had the opportunity to Artisan for a Munkidori. I think in this turn I Artisan just to see what's in my deck. And I decided not to grab a Munkidori here. But I think I could have maybe gone for the Munkidori and attached a Luminous to it. My biggest concern here is if I put a Dragapult to the active and my opponent has some crazy combo like Mew, Clefairy, Munkidori, Turo or something, then they could double Munkidori, KO my Dragapult plus my Munkidori with the Genome Hacking Phantom Dive, and that would give them the 3 prizes. So I actually don't end up putting the Munkidori down here because I want to guarantee that they can't take more than 2 next turn. So here I take out the Fez just to get back into the prize race a little bit. I have a pretty good feeling my Dragapult is going to be knocked out. And here I put damage on the Munkidori because next turn I am planning on using my own Munkidori to, even if they heal off their Monkey, I can put the damage back on it and then kill it with a residual Phantom Dive. And that's kind of what ends up happening later on in the game. So now my opponent does have to deal with my Dragapult. I think they're going through kind of all their pieces. Of course, they get the Clefairy down, and now here they get like a really annoying knockout, which is knocking out my Dragapult with the Jelly. Because now their Jelly is just out of knockout range of my Dragapult, so I can't actually return KO with Dragapult to KO the Jelly and the Monkey. So now I have to go into a Blood Moon play, because that's the only way I can take out the Jelly, and I have to just pray that my opponent doesn't have a way to recover Scream Tail to KO my Latias or something like that. Um, Here I do decide to put down the Monkey Luminous because I wanted to push the damage on Latias back to their Monkey so I can KO it with a residual Phantom Dive later. This was maybe a bit of a mistake because I realize now in this position my opponent can actually just recover Scream Tail and just Scream Tail KO my Monkey because they are at one prize. I didn't realize this at the time, but now that I'm looking back on it, I'm realizing that that actually could have just been a win condition for them, so I probably should have held off on putting down the Monkey this turn. But if I don't Monkey this damage off this Latias, then next turn they can just Monkey some damage over to my Latias and KO it with a Scream Tail. So if they recover Scream Tail, I'm losing anyway. I don't know if I thought about that at the time or if I just realized that on reviewing, but for me, I just thought I need to get this damage off of this Latias, otherwise it's dying to a Scream Tail plus Monkey anyway. So here I look at my opponent's resources, see what they have, move the damage back to the Monkey and take out the Jelly. And I really just need to survive one turn, because if I survive one turn, if my opponent doesn't get another Monkey Dark down, even if they move damage back to my board, I'm just going to be able to move it back and KO the Monkey Dory with the Phantom Dive residual. So here my opponent Ionos, which is a good sign for me. They don't have a Mew or Fez now to draw cards. They don't have the win in their hand. So they just go for a punch into my Blood Moon. But here I just have game on board. You see me just quickly move 30 back to the Monkey and Phantom Dive into the Guardy to KO the Monkey on the bench. So overall, kind of a sloppy game, I'm not going to lie. Again, I really am happy that I had the opportunity to review this. This play was maybe way too aggressive and I was maybe like too scared of losing my Dracloak and not thinking enough about what would happen if I pop both Dusclops and I don't have them later if my opponent hits a Guardy. So this is definitely a really big learning experience. This comes up a lot, KOing a Jelly with Blood Moon later on in the game. This has come up in multiple Guardy matchups for me. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. And again, you hear me talk about this earlier in the video. My Neo Upper Energy is always prized. I'm going to spoil this for you. It's also prized in Game 3, which ends up not mattering. But my opponent also prized a bunch of energies here. The big thing in this game is I really should have scooped earlier. Here, I wasn't sure if I wanted to discard this boss with this Ultra Ball, but I figure if I'm getting item locked and my hand is dead, if I don't have a Dracloak, I'm just going to go draw pass for a few turns and I'm going to just lose. So I do decide to go for the Ultra Ball here. I give up a boss's orders to get the Loke. I know I'm getting item locked. I'm going to be able to item lock my opponent back. And my last card in hand, I think, was an Iono. So obviously, I didn't want to throw that away over the boss. Actually, yeah, I think I got the Dracloak because I wanted to just get a guaranteed Dracloak, not so much because I needed a draw supporter. But then my opponent also gives me an Artisan here, which lets me grab a Duskull. And I think here I actually top deck the research, so I end up researching away the Iono. So I evolve here, I research away the Iono, get a bunch of Buddy Buddy Poffins that I obviously cannot use because of Frillish. Another thing I noticed is like I keep Artisaning before I play a draw supporter. I think based on what I have been told, I'm not supposed to do that. I think I'm actually supposed to Artisan after, so I see what I get off of the draw supporter. So that's also another big learning here. I get another Dreepy down, I get an energy attach, and then we kind of just go into a bit of an item lock war. And here my opponent actually has like two Curlias just raw in hand, which is really unfortunate for me. And I think there was a little bit of a confusion here with the judges were kind of asking if one of us drew too many cards. I think the confusion was when I researched away the Iono, they thought I played the Iono, so they thought that I drew one extra card or my opponent drew an extra card or something, so they were asking why I had 7 cards in hand. And then I was able to clarify with them that I actually played the research and not the Iono. So that's where this kind of like pause came from, and that's what the confusion was about. So I think we just skip back into the game. Everything's fine. My opponent just goes for the Gloom. And this position is actually better and worse than the last one for me because here I have way more Dreepy, so I have more draw power, but my opponent, again, has 2 Curlias down. They have an Artisan that they can use to Scream Tail. I kind of am feeling a little bit desperate to get a Dragapult down here because if I don't, then once again, I lose my only Dracloak with energy. So I go for the draw supporter here and pray that I hit a Dragapult. I don't remember if I do. Let's find out. Does not look like I do. But I get the Dusclops down. So Monkey some damage over. I don't know if that was the right target to put it on, but I just go for the Pollen here. And we catch this in a second. It's supposed to be 2 damage on the Curlia. My opponent does get, I think they get a Monkey Dark here. Yeah, they get the Guardy Jelly Iono. So now this is a really bad position for me because my opponent's going to KO my Badoo with probably a Monkey if they get a Dark. Yep, there it is. And I have to give them I would give them the Dreepy without damage here because I want to use the damage that I have on my board on my Dreepy with my Monkey Dory. So I decided if they want to take a knockout, they can just take it on my Dreepy with no damage. And the reason why I didn't push the Dracloak is because if they happen to just have Clefairy in hand, then if they KO my only Dracloak, I kind of just lose the game on the spot. So I just gave them a Dreepy. And here in this moment, the reason why I pushed the monkey and the reason why I kept playing, realistically, this is one of those moments where I think I could have scooped, but the play I was going for here is actually the play that I went for against Cal Connor, which won me the game, which is I was looking for a mind bend from my monkey onto the jelly, because getting mind bended is actually really, really annoying for the monkey. Or sorry, for the jelly. So here you see me digging desperately. I think I play like lilies, I think I play like double recon. I'm desperately, that's also why Artisan for the Duskull here. I'm trying to thin so aggressively just to hit a non-luminous energy. At this point, I think I had one psychic on my Dracloak, one psychic in my discard, so I only had one fire energy left. I don't even remember if that energy was prized. I know Neo was prized. Let's see if my fire was prized. No, it doesn't look like my fire was prized. So I should have actually done the math here and realized that I was down two psychics, and the only energy in deck that I have to be able to draw is fire energy. So realistically, I'm probably not hitting the Mind Bend. You see me hit the Luminous here, and actually, even if I had Neo in deck, Neo doesn't get me the Mind Bend because, for those of you who don't know, if you have a Luminous attached and another special energy attached, Luminous loses its rainbow effect, so it just acts as a colorless, and Neo only gives a colorless to non-stage 2. So I specifically needed to hit my fire energy here. So realistically here in this position, I probably should have just scooped because I can't Mind Bend, and going for the Phantom Dive here doesn't really do anything. My opponent's just going to get like some sort of like Clefairy KO back on my Dragapult. There's 12 minutes left in round. Realistically, this board state is really bad. I should not be playing this board state. I wasn't really sure how much time was left at this point. I think at the start of the round, I knew there were 22 minutes, so I wasn't sure if we would be able to like play it out to the point where I could just 1-0. Like that's not kind of what I wanted to go for. I wanted to actually get some, get like all the games in if possible. So to that end, I should have actually scooped in this exact position because realistically, I'm not coming back from this. There's one kind of point later in the game where my opponent does give me a chance, or I thought I had a chance. So this is actually kind of something about me just not paying attention. So here, I think my opponent vesseled for a psychic energy. So I see that they have a psychic in hand. And here I'm counting, they have 5 psychics on board, they have 1 psychic in discard, so in my head I'm like, as long as they don't hit their last dark energy or their last psychic energy, maybe I can trap Guardian the active for a turn, set up 2 Dragapults or like a Dragapult Dust Noir, Iono them to 1, and then just like punch them and hope that they don't find their Clefairy. But I just completely just wasn't paying attention. I was so tunnel visioned on my own play that I completely forgot that my opponent vesseled for a psychic energy. I think this is something I actually realized when I watched the Zool stream. Like, he's like, what is this guy doing? Like, we saw him vessel for the psychic, and that's when I realized, like, yeah, I don't know why I forgot that. So I think I end up going for an Itchy Pollen here, praying that they don't find the psychic, but they have 1 in discard, they have 1 in hand. Like, this, as soon as they retreated here, this should have been a scoop. Like, there's no reason for me to keep playing here. I just wasted a bunch of time on Iono for nothing. And yeah, I end up just losing. I end up scooping with like way too little time on the clock. And going into game 3 here, I am going second, so I really should have gone for the scoop a lot sooner. Again, you see my Neo overpriced again. Yeah, I'm not allowed to play that card apparently. And going into game 3, like I know we're not finishing this game, but when I saw my opponent kind of just attach the Pheasant pass, I thought maybe there's a line, so I kind of go into turbo mode here myself, just play a bunch of cards, Pollen. My opponent's not dropping any basics or anything, so I just drop a bunch of cards. Dusclops, Dracloak, trying to find a supporter, nothing, Pollen. And here, like, I mean, technically I do have a line to win if I can find like Halucha, Dusk Noir, Dragapult, Energy, Gust, or some crazy combo like that. I can go for like a Halucha, Phantom Dive, Dusk Noir, KO on the Mew. But my opponent goes for the Iono, gets a bunch of basics down, and now in this position, like, it's over. I know I'm turn 1 of time at this point. I think I just want to play out the last turn because I'm on stream, dude. It's so cool. I never get to be here. So I just play out my turn. I know I'm not going to board wipe my opponent here, and then I just go for the KO on the Ralts, and then, yeah, we just tie it up. So, unfortunately, 2 big things that came up here. The Dusclops double pop was a little bit too... Like, I was playing a little bit too scared to the point where I kind of played down my own board state too much. I should not have been that scared of a Gardevoir, because even if they get the Gardevoir off, I could have realistically stabilized my board by just going to an Itchy Pollen for a turn. And then the second thing is just, not scooping enough game 2. I think that's something that I covered in one of my videos. I think it was video 3 that you can check out down below. But yeah, that's a perfect example of when you should scoop a lot sooner. I realistically would have won game 3 if we look at this board state, even after my opponent put down all the basics. This position is doomed for them because look at this. I'm Dust Noiring their only Ralts. What did I even have? Like, I don't even think I was item locked here. I didn't even need to Dust Noir the Ralts. I could have just gone for like a Dust Noir onto like the Mew, and then I have a counter catcher. I could have gone like counter catcher into the Ralts. KO Ralts plus Mew, take away some draw power or something. I don't know. I could have like gone for something, or like just put some damage on their board. Yeah, my opponent had no ralts. I was going to KO things. I was going to take like three prizes, put some damage on their board. That game was completely winning. So if I had actually scooped properly game two, I probably would have won game three, and I would have ended this match 6-0. So great stream experience, great learning experience. You know, I hope to end up on stream more just because I want to be able to review my games more rather than wanting to actually be in the spotlight. But I really appreciate the opportunity to actually go back and watch my games. And a huge thank you to my opponent. He was very friendly. He was very, sportsmanlike. It was his first time on stream as well. So shout out to Shinosuke, I believe his name is. I hope I'm saying that right. So thank you to him as well. And thank you to the judges for making my first stream experience awesome.